Welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I'm Jessica Lorimer, sales coach and leadership expert, and I am really excited to dig down into today's episode. Yay, poddies! It's almost the end of May. Can you believe it? I just don't know where this year is going. And I know I've said this pretty consistently, but in 3 days' time, we're officially going to be in the 6th month of the year. Halfway through, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. I feel like this is my 30th year. It's my 30th birthday in September, the 22nd, just in case you're interested and you're thinking, I really wonder what star sign Jess is. I'm on the cusp between Virgo and Libra. But I'm feeling like because it's my 30th year, it's just speeding by. And it's getting quite scary now. I don't know whether I should be feeling like some kind of anticipatory fear around becoming 30 or whether I'll finally turn into a real grown-up. I don't know. Some quick thank yous this week, because this week it's been really, really cool. There've been some really cool things happening with regards to the podcast. And so I just wanted to take a little moment before we dig into today to say a quick couple of thank yous. There was one thank you that I wanted to say to the amazing Victoria, who left us a really lovely review on iTunes. So thank you very much, Victoria Treatis. And I think it's Treatis. It might be Treatis. I'm terrible at pronouncing surnames, but I really, really appreciate you. You sent us a really lovely review on iTunes to say that the podcast was great, and I really appreciate that. So if you are somebody who's thinking, Jess, I've not left you a review on the podcast and you would like to, then I would really appreciate it. It's always good to know that we're doing the right stuff. The other thing that I got this week that I really loved was an email from Gerjo Vanderberg, who sent me a really lovely email about the podcast saying, and this made my day, saying that I wanted to reach out really quickly to tell you how much I enjoy your podcast newsletter. You make me laugh all the time. That is like the best kind of feedback. Okay. So, big thank you to Gerjo and to Victoria for making my week. This was not the intro that was originally going to go on this episode, but I just wanted you guys to know that I really appreciate you. And for all of you who send in feedback or emails about the podcast or contribute to reviews on iTunes or any other podcast player of your choice, I do really appreciate them. I do read all the emails myself, and it really does make my day. So thank you for that. Thank you for making my day. Anyway, jumping into the episode, it's a goodie. So this week, I want to talk about selling to corporations. Now, before you snore, I know, selling to corporates sounds like Yawnsville. But I promise you it isn't. And I promise you that if you are somebody who is a diehard entrepreneur who thinks that they only ever want to sell to other entrepreneurs, you are still going to get something from this episode with regards to business development, with regards to how different it can be selling to corporates. And, if you're on the fence, if you're thinking, well, actually, Jess, I'm not sure that my product or service is right for corporates, or you've been thinking about selling to a corporate for a little bit of time, this episode is going to help you define whether or not you actually want to do it, what the reality of it is going to look like, and some of the work that you'll need to put in. So let's dive in. It's going to be a fun one. Hold on to your hats and let's crank it out. So this all came about. It's a really interesting one for me because I left corporate and I wanted to reject everything that I had ever learned or felt about working for an organization. I was somebody who, when I left, I loved my job. I really did. I really loved what I did. I loved the people that I worked with. I loved the companies that I got to work with. I loved the clients. And I was saying this to one of my clients the other day, I never thought I would leave. It was only because I had this illness. It was only because I had ME and had this diagnosis that I physically couldn't do my job anymore. And that was really hard for me because I'd almost always used my job as an identity. I was a high performer and I was a corporate high flyer, and those things made me feel really good. So leaving it actually was really quite difficult for me. And it was quite surprising because when I came into the entrepreneur world, it felt like everybody felt like corporate was a dirty word. They were like, oh, you have a job, right? Because I obviously built my business alongside my job. Oh, you have a job? And it kind of felt awkward and uncomfortable. And then when I finally left my job after 3 months and I went full time into entrepreneurship, I almost had this breathe out moment where, and that's the only way I can describe it, is a breathing out where I didn't want to set KPIs, and I didn't want to get up at 6 a.m. and I didn't want to do a 9 to 5, and I just wanted to reject all of it. And I wanted to really buy into the things that people were saying about entrepreneurship. They were like, yeah, you can work from the beach, laptop lifestyle. I don't know anyone who has ever worked from the beach successfully. Sand in keyboards, people, like seriously. But I really wanted to buy into that. And I really wanted to buy into this, ease and flow. And I'm just going to write when I'm inspired. And I'm just going to create when I'm inspired. And then, 3 months later, I kind of realized that rejecting all of the stuff I'd learned in corporate meant that I wasn't going to make that much money, and that I was actually busy all of the time, but not productive. And so, it gave me this realization that actually, whilst I wasn't ready, and I never would be ready to go back to a corporate job, there were certain things I really admired about the way that corporate organizations are run, about the lessons that I learned from them. And I realized that I did actually want to go back and do consulting for them from time to time. And so, that is one of the things that I do. Occasionally I'll go back to a corporate organization and I'll train them on something, or I'll go in and deliver an insight, or I'll do a keynote. And I really enjoy it. I really, really enjoy it. I don't enjoy it more than the work that I do with entrepreneurs, but sometimes I'm just like, you know what? The great thing about working for a corporate or with a corporate is they're super transparent, they're easy to sell to, they pay you good money, and you just get to deliver and leave. And that's quite nice sometimes, right? That's quite nice. So that's what I was starting to feel, and I was starting to feel like, oh, maybe this is something that my clients could be doing. And so, a couple of years ago, I started experimenting with clients and talking to clients about potentially moving their businesses and pivoting slightly and actually using the skills they had and selling them back into corporate companies. One of those people was the amazing Julie Dennis. She has been on the podcast before. You can actually go and listen to her episode, and she's phenomenal. Like, can we just little shout out there for Julie? She's just great. Julie is a menopause expert, and she came to me and she told the story in the episode that she recorded on the podcast. So I'm not going to go into it in huge detail, but she came to me in January 2018, and she said, do you know what, Jess? I'm not really happy with my business as it stands. She was running Facebook groups. She was in other Facebook groups. She was looking to work one-to-one, and she just wasn't enjoying it. And in her own words, she said, I was just at the end of my tether with it. I was just kind of not in love, not really getting the freedom that she wanted. And so she came to me and we talked about how she could shift her business model so that she started selling to corporates. Now we are 1 year and 4 months on. Julie has just finished running a marathon because she's very fit and healthy. That is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I don't know how she does it, but she's just finished a marathon, and I'm assuming drinking quite a lot of gin after the marathon, because that's what I do if I was smart enough and healthy enough to complete a marathon. But most importantly, she's also for the last 1 year and 4 months been completely booked with incredible clients. She has been asked to keynote and chair a panel discussion at the House of Lords as an expert on the menopause and handling menopause within organizations. She is being approached regularly by clients who just say, we want to work with you. We've heard great things. She gets great results. She, consistently delivers quality experiences for her clients. And that's really paying back for her in terms of freedom, in terms of like financial aspects, and just in terms of enjoyment. She actually likes her business now. How great is that? I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of like fist pumping Julie right now. So Julie, if you are listening on a run or something like that, know that we're all fist pumping you and we think you're ace. But on a serious note, 1 year and 4 months isn't a long time. And most of the time when people talk to me about potentially selling to corporate clients, is that what they say is, well, Jess, it's going to take me ages. Or what if a corporate company doesn't want what I sell? And do you know what? Not every corporate company is going to want every single thing. Okay, so if you're into something really like, I was going to say weird and wonderful, but I think we're kind of past that. There aren't that many things anymore that are weird and wonderful that corporates would not take. But I think sometimes we have to be more open-minded and think about ways that we can actually help corporations be more open-minded themselves about the resources that they use and about the companies that they're using to provide those resources. So, Julie obviously is a menopause expert. It's not the sort of thing that you would immediately associate with corporate organizations, but she is acing it. Okay, she's not a stationary person. She's not a printing organization. She's not a health and safety person. She talks about the menopause. She goes in, she's making it mainstream, and she's delivering these incredible experiences to corporate organizations. So if you're thinking, well, my product or my service might not be the first thing that corporate thinks, yeah, I've got to have that. I'm not an accountant or a lawyer. Don't worry, because it's not about having something that is super, super mainstream. It's actually about thinking, well, does a corporate organization need help with this? And so that's kind of the first area I really want to touch on today is, how do you know if you can even work with a corporate? Like, who do you have to be? And the answer is anyone. I didn't just tell you about Julie because she's ace, even though she is, but anyone can work with a corporate in the majority of businesses. So I have clients who are working with me in my mastermind, who are working with me in Evolve, who are even in my Dotties membership, who are working with corporates, and they're working in industries like fertility. They're working in industries like transformation and change. They're working in industries like leadership, onboarding, stress, anxiety, performance. There are lots and lots of ways. And we're not just talking about coaches here. Let's kind of throw this one out there as well, because you might be listening to this thinking, well, yeah, but it's all right if you're a coach. A lot of my clients who are working with corporates don't like the word coach. And even in corporate, coach is kind of a weird word. I remember when I left my job and I said to people, I'm going to go and be a sales coach. And I remember my corporate friends looking at me and being like, oh, that's cool. What is that? What does that do? They were kind of like, is it like being on sports team? So, a lot of my clients who are working with corporates, they're not coaches. They are consultants. They are delivering training. They are working on policy. They are working in governance. They are, some of them are doing executive coaching. Some of them are selling done-for-you products and services. Some of them are putting systems and processes in place. So there are lots of things that you can do with corporates. But what I'm trying to say is, not everybody who wants to work with a corporation needs to be a coach, and not everybody who works with a corporation needs to do something that's super, super mainstream, And again, I'll throw out the health and safety example, or accounting, or legal. These are things that companies need for sure, but you don't have to be working in those industries to work successfully with corporate organizations. So the second thing that you want to be thinking about when you're thinking about who can work with a corporate is, do you even want to work with corporates? Now, this is an interesting one. Again, like I was saying earlier, I had my corporate rebellion. I didn't want to work with any. I was like, no, I'm done. I avoided them for months, but I also missed it a bit. I missed the adrenaline. I missed the competitive edge. I missed the structure. I missed the transparency to some degree. And that's why I started going back and doing little pieces of consulting. I want to be very clear. I do, maybe 1 to 2 consulting opportunities or days per quarter. We're not talking about me going out every week and being like, yay, which company can I work with this week? It's 1 or 2 per quarter, if that. And I take very select clients to do very select things, but I enjoy it. And when you're looking at whether or not you should sell to corporates, you've got to look at your strengths and you've got to look at whether or not you want to do it. So when you're looking at selling to a corporate or thinking about selling to a corporate company, it's a very different experience. Now, I've done podcast episodes on defining your own sales style, and I would fully advise, if you haven't listened to that episode yet, you go back and listen to that on how to define your sales style and think about what kind of seller you are and what kind of buyer your customers are, because that's just going to help you anyway. But selling to corporates is a very different experience, because selling to corporates is transparent. Okay, so now let's just say you're an entrepreneur, and let's just say that you've heard from sales coaches in the past. I'm going to say not necessarily salubrious sales coaches in the past about this particular method of, bubbling up leads, right? Some people calling it bubbling up leads. Some people call it sourcing leads. Some people call it social media lead generation. But there is a specific breed of coaches over the years who've taught people that the best way as an entrepreneur to market is to go and add a bunch of people on Facebook who also look like entrepreneurs, and to scroll through their feed and find something in common. you know, and I used to get this a lot. I used to get a lot of messages like this, and they go, oh my goodness, you have a dog and I have a dog. We should talk. And back in the day when I was a bit more naive about this whole talking thing, I used to get on the phone with people and they'd talk about my dog for about 5 seconds and then be like, do you know, I run this great company that could teach you how to lose more weight in 6 weeks. Or, you know, they'd try and sell me into this MLM product or do these things. And it just felt really incongruent and gross. I've always been very against this, by the way. So if you were thinking about pitching me, probably don't do it in Facebook. Don't slide into my DMs, as the kids say, and be like, Jess, you have a dog, I have a dog, we should talk about dogs, and then try and pitch me a juicing product. Okay, because I'm not going to go there. But selling to corporations is very different, because when you sell to a corporate, it's great. You basically you find the corporate company you want to work with, you identify a point of contact, and you say, hey, I do this. This is how I help organizations. What are you doing about that? So I could, for example, go on LinkedIn, I could find a point of contact for a company that I wanted to do some work with and say, hey, I specialize in helping companies make more money, or I specialize in helping companies train their salespeople so that they are less sleazy and convert more customers. What are you doing about that? And you can have these really transparent conversations, because it's not like selling to entrepreneurs. When you sell to entrepreneurs, and particularly entrepreneurs who are running personal brands, you have to be quite aware that, you know, some people take things the wrong way. They don't want you to think that they're not doing something well, or perhaps you catch them on an off day and they're, you know, they feel like they want to blast your message out to the world and say, you know, Jess approached me and tried to sell me something. How dare she? That's never happened. Well, not yet anyway. If anyone wants to do that today, you know, maybe give it a go. I'll laugh. So selling to corporations is about that transparency. You can have these high level conversations. You can have a conversation with a point of contact who is looking out for the best for the company rather than being emotionally or personally attached to the outcome. And that actually makes sales quite easy. So if you're somebody who wishes that sales could be more transparent, that it could be easier, that you could have just really good conversations, then selling to corporations might be a good idea for you. It's also about negotiation. Selling to corporates is very different in that corporate companies will negotiate on price, you know, and they won't do it in the same way that people in Facebook groups will. So sometimes you'll see that people in Facebook group will write, oh, I can't afford that, or, oh, you know, maybe I'll look at a different option or something. Corporate companies, they don't work like that. They will negotiate because they like to feel like they're winning, right? So they'll come back and say, oh, you know, I don't want to pay 5K, but, you know, I'll pay 4,200. And then they expect you to meet them in the middle. Okay. So you have to be somebody who is quite resilient to work with corporations, not just because of the negotiation piece, and certainly not just because of the fact that when you are doing business development to work with corporate companies, you're going to get a lot of no's. You'll also get some yeses, but let's be clear, you're going to get some no's, you're going to get hung up on, you're going to get conversations that are awkward and uncomfortable, but also because of the delivery. You know, if you remember working for a corporate company, you'll know that actually delivery can be really tough on external companies. People go into the trainings feeling quite cynical. They're not always happy to be there. Sometimes they're feeling frustrated because they have other tasks that they really want to get done and they don't prioritize this, but because their bosses said they have to, they do. And so actually you have to be somebody who is mentally quite strong to work for a corporation or to work with a corporation. And that goes for selling to them and delivering that as well. Now, another thing to think about when you're thinking whether or not you should work with corporates is this going to take you away from an already successful business? So if you already have a successful business, if you're already doing really, really well, and you are already generating leads on demand, people are coming to you, they just want to buy your stuff, you really have to think about, do you want to incorporate a new business element, or do you want to dial down on something that's already successful for you? Okay. Now there are two ways of looking at this. Either you can look at it and go, well, I'm already successful here and this is awesome. It's ticking along on its own. So I have time to dedicate to a new business area. Or you can look at it and think, well, actually, I'm making great money here. I'm getting good leads here. I'm well established and I'm the expert here. So I don't think that I need to go and look at a shiny object. Okay. So that's the third and final thing to consider when you're thinking about whether or not you want to work with corporate companies. Is it a shiny object, or is it something I actually really want to do well and make great money with? And then what we actually have to think about is a second objection that often comes up. So the first objection that usually comes up when we talk to people about, do you want to sell to corporates or not, is, I don't know that I have a service I can sell them. And we have the lovely Julie who's proven us wrong. And the second thing that comes up is time. It's going to take me ages. Selling to corporates will take me ages. It'll take them ages to sign the contract and ages to pay me and ages to get the business development done. And I want to tell you about another one of my clients, Emma. Emma is a masterminder of mine. She is phenomenal. Emma just makes me laugh. We get on calls and she's incredibly straightforward as a person. I really like that about Emma. In fact, there's something that I really like about all of my clients is that they're all very good at being very straightforward. And I'm using the word straightforward because I know how I feel when people call me blunt. But they're all very straightforward and they all just say it how it is. And a few months ago, Emma said to me, I'm thinking about selling to corporates. And Emma is, for those of you who don't know, she's also been on the podcast. You can go and look up her episode. Emma Langton is her name. She did this great episode with me actually on selling every day. It's phenomenal. So definitely check it out. But she came to me and she was like, I'm thinking about selling to corporates. And Emma is phenomenal at helping executives and high achievers get to their kind of peak performance levels, overcome stress, overcome anxiety in the workplace, and just really help them get back to that peak performance condition and operate at their highest level. And she's like, I really think I can do that with corporate companies. And I was like, I completely agree. I'm so glad that you're finally thinking about doing it. Yay, this is exciting. Now, Emma is one of those people who she actually already was an expert in her field. And so people were already coming to her. She was doing lots of individual coaching and things. And so people were already coming to her. She wasn't really having to do tons to get that business. So for her, corporate needed to take a little bit of a back burner and selling to corporates needed to take a bit of a back burner. But she came to me, about a month ago. And she was like, Jess, I'm ready to do this corporate thing now. And I just want it to happen. This is another thing I really like about Emma is that she's like me and that she's very impatient. She's like, right, well, I've decided that I want to do it now. So I just want it to happen. Thank you very much. And so we sat there on this call and we mapped out what she needed to go and do. And within 2 days, she came back into the private Facebook group that my masterminders have. And she said, right, well, I've done this work and I've got a company who is already thinking about working with me and they're going to let me know within the next 10 days. And then she turns around 10 days later and she's like, yep, all signed off, all ready to go. I've already asked them if they can refer me to anyone else. And she's off. She's away in 10 days. How crazy, or 12 if you count the extra 2, but 12 days of, she went out, she did the work for 2, generated the lead within 10 days, closed off, contract in, invoice done. So when you start thinking about, well, corporate, everything's going to take me a long time, it doesn't have to. And yes, there is an element of this, of the kind of weird Wolf of Wall Street-esque always be closing thing. And that's not how my clients operate, just as an FYI. My clients are not sharks. They are not going to corporates and bashing down doors and being super aggressive at all. My clients are consultatively selling to organizations and they're working with them to find the best solution for their people. And they're doing that really, really well. And that's why they're able to close these clients quickly. And it's why they've been so successful. And it's why they go out and they continue then to get word of mouth referrals and more business, repeat business from these companies. So if you sat there and you're thinking, well, actually taking my business to a corporate setting or selling to corporate is going to take me a long time, it doesn't have to. And it's really about, selling to a corporate company and getting results quickly is about knowing and having that clarity around what kind of company do I want to sell to and what do I want to sell to them. And it sounds really basic, but actually that is the game changer. Having a niche, having a clear specialism when you're selling to corporations is super, super important because they value specialism. And I know that I bang on about this on the podcast all the time. So if you've heard it before, I'm kind of sorry, not sorry. But they really, really value having the specialist who is ready to help professional services companies, or having the specialist who works with financial services companies to provide the coolest stationery ever, or hiring the best gift company to provide gifts at their big corporate events. They really like specialisms. And so if you're thinking, okay, well, I want to work with corporates, or actually I'm trying to work with corporates and it's taking a long time, look at your niche. Look at whether you're actually niche enough. Are you the specialist? Are you actually telling people how you can help them and only them, and making it really, really clear? Okay, so that's the second thing, is do you have time? And how long does it really take to start working with these corporate companies? The other thing is, if you start working with a corporate, do you become corporate? And the answer to that is no. I want to throw that out there because a lot of people say to me, Jess, I kind of would like to work with corporates because the money's really good and all this kind of thing, but I don't want to be an employee. And you don't have to be. When you're selling to a corporate, you are selling your services or your product. It doesn't mean you and your product change to fit them. When I do corporate consulting, I rock up in jeans. I'm kind of there. I'm very open about the fact that I'm going to start at 10 and I'm going to leave at 4, and that's your lot, because I don't want to ever get back into that mentality of feeling like I have to be first in, last out, just to make a good impression or really over deliver. It's about you taking your area of expertise into a corporate and delivering that in the best way for them. So, working for a corporate is not about turning into an employee for them. It's about delivering a service in the best possible way to get them to their outcome, their desired outcome, in the quickest possible time frame. Okay. And that's what they value. Now, there's another piece here that I think we kind of have to touch on just before we kind of look at the key points and the real overview you need to decide what you want to do and how you're going to take this forward. The thing is money, right? And it's a hard one because sometimes when we're entrepreneurs, we get so caught up in this. We really want to help people. Usually business owners become business owners because they want to help. They want to make an impact. They want to do things. And I think sometimes unfairly, we can feel like selling to a corporate or delivering a service to a corporate is not necessarily helping or making the same impact as if we were doing it to people who are entrepreneurs or who are solo business owners or who are consumers, because we feel like, well, it's a corporate and we kind of have the big image of the man, which, yes, I'm doing air quotes. We always talk about corporates. We're like the man, the corporate hamster wheel, the this, and it's all quite negative, right? And so people tend to feel like corporates, yes, you'll get paid more, but you're giving up the things that you really stand for as a business owner in terms of impact and helping people. And I really want to just remind people about this, right? Money is necessary. Money is integral. Money is oxygen for your business. And it doesn't matter about who you're working with. You are still making an impact. There is no difference between making an impact for people who can pay you and making an impact for people who can't. The only difference is that with one of those groups of people, you are going to be able to continue helping people because you will continue getting paid, your business will make money, and then you'll be able to help your paying customers and your audience in general who perhaps can't pay you yet. With the other, if you only ever help for free and you only ever value helping people who cannot pay you, your business will die. Okay. And that's just simple economics. So don't get caught in this trap of thinking that working with a corporate means that it's any less valuable or that it's making any less impact just because it's probably going to pay you more money. And I want to give you a really good example of this. One of my clients, I'm not going to name names, they're doing some super secret squirrel confidential work with corporate companies across the globe. This is somebody who's signing multiple 5-figure deals across the globe with big household name companies. And they are delivering training to an incredibly high level. They're delivering training to a number of people at any one time. And they're signing corporate contracts in the region of between £35,000 and £120,000 a time. And that's what they get paid. Okay. I'm just going to make that clear. That's what they get paid. So, this particular client of mine, we talked about this a few months ago, back in February. We were talking about this and they were saying that, one of the big questions that had come up for them from their spouse was actually, do you feel like you're making the same impact you could be as if you had gone down, the kind of Tony Robbins or Oprah route and gone onto a stage and done that kind of work? And this particular client for a while felt like that was quite challenging and felt like they didn't know whether they were making the same amount of impact. And they really had to reconcile themselves to the fact that, they weren't doing this just for the money. And that actually the money they made in signing the corporate contracts allowed them to go out and do some phenomenal charity work. And it allowed them to go out and help entrepreneurs who were not as far along the path as they were. So actually they did in the end reconcile themselves to that value piece. It wasn't necessarily in the way they expected. They weren't saying, okay, look, all of my corporate clients really, really value me and I'm making exactly the same impact. But the money that they were able to earn from those corporate clients allowed them to make an impact in the world in a different way. So when you are thinking about working with corporates and you're thinking, well, maybe I'm not going to make as much impact in the world, don't just think about the direct impact. Also think about, how making money can impact the world around you, what you can do with that. And also start to think about the financial side of working with a corporation. There are some great perks to working with corporations, and the money is often one of them. Okay, let's not beat around the bush here. Money is a good thing. We all want to earn money. If you don't want to earn money, I'm not sure that you'd listen to a sales podcast. But, money is a good thing. And working with corporations means that you get paid generally more than you would in the internet marketing space. And it means that you get paid generally in full or in sizable installments at regular times throughout the year. And if you're working with great companies, there are lots of benefits to those financial situations in terms of stability and security, and really topping up your pipeline from time to time. Okay, so those are the key things, the key objections that people often raise, and just some counterpoints to why you might think about working with corporations if you are an entrepreneur. Even if you're the die-hard entrepreneur and you're like, no, I only ever want to sell to other entrepreneurs, just, think about how you value those things. Think about, even if you're now not going to go and sell to corporations, how you can, define your target market, nail that specialism, think about, the value of money and impact in your business, and whether you're working with all of the potential clients that you could be. But if you're listening to that and thinking, well, actually, Jess, this sounds pretty good. I can work with corporates. I get to sell transparently. I can, make it happen really quite quickly. And I can do the things that I'm really good at and get paid good money for them. Then yes, now is the time. Now is a really good time to think about selling to corporate companies. And if you are more interested in this, I'm going to throw it out here. A couple of months ago, actually, I told you that I was setting up a second podcast. Do you remember that? I think it was in March. In March, we talked about me setting up a second podcast, and I thought it was going to come out in like April, and then life happened, and Sam came home, and I needed to just percolate that second podcast and what the value would be of it. And I have since decided the value of it. And that is that this second podcast, this brand new podcast from me, is going to be about helping you sell to corporate companies. So if you are interested in selling to corporate companies and you want more Jess in your life, then I'm going to produce like 2 episodes a month, so not tons, 2 episodes a month on how you can sell to corporates. Now, the podcast is going to be called Selling to Corporates because, let's face it, there weren't really any jazzy titles when it came to corporate podcasts. If you have any ideas for jazzy titles, by the way, you can feel free, drop in my inbox, let me know. Happy to take ideas. But we are launching that podcast in June, so it will be coming out in June. So in 3 days' time, we are going to be really winding into the launch for the new podcast. Now, if you would like to know more about it, if you'd like to get on the wait list and be told when it comes out and get all of the launch dates and everything so that you can go in there and get the first episodes in your earbuds and start exploring selling to corporates, you can actually go and sign up. That we do have a wait list, so you can go into the show notes and grab the page. You can go in there, just drop in your email address. We will only send you details about the podcast launch, so you'll get an email telling you the date that the podcast is going to launch, and you'll get a sneak preview on what the first episodes are going to be about. So if you head over to the show notes, you can grab that link. Or alternatively, you can head over to smartlytosell.com, and we have a little bar at the top of the page just letting you know that you can officially go and get on the wait list to hear more about that corporate podcast as well. So if you are interested in learning more about selling to corporations and you think, yeah, you know what, Jess's advice over the last couple of years of listening to her podcast has been pretty good, so I'll give her a go when it comes to selling to corporations and seeing what I can do with that, then make sure you go get your name and email on that list, and you will get an email to give you all of the details about when that's going to be launching, about previews of the first couple of episodes. And obviously, I will be asking for your support to rocket it into the charts. Because let's face it, like sales and selling to corporates is a particularly boring topic, I would imagine. I'm going to give it as much welly as I can and make it as entertaining and informational as I can. but getting it to the top of the chart might be a little bit of a challenge. So I may ask for your help with that as well. But you can go and get on that waitlist there. You can go and learn about that. And in the meantime, if you are interested in selling to corporations, it's also worth grabbing your mitts onto my email list. If you go and sign up to my email list, you will get a little email in the welcome sequence, because we love a bit of automation over here at Smart Leaders Sell HQ. And it will ask you if you are interested in receiving emails about selling to corporations. And if you are, you can click that button, and every couple of weeks you'll get sent a little email direct from me saying, this is a top tip about selling to corporates this week, or this is something to consider about contracts this week, or this is something about negotiation that you can probably use this week. So if you are interested in doing that, make sure you head over to my email list, get yourself on the wait list for the new podcast, all about selling to corporates. And if you do think that you might want to sell to corporates, but you're not sure what that might look like, or you have a couple of questions about it before the podcast comes out, head over to the free Facebook group, get yourself in there, be like, Jess, I would like to know, who are these corporates of which you speak? What can I be doing with them? And how can I be making more money and more impact by selling to corporations and really standing out as that expert in my field? I will see you on Friday. We have a really, really cool guest coming in this Friday that I'm very excited about. So I'll see you in that episode. Have an amazing week. And like I say, if you have any questions, if there's anything you need from me, head over into the Facebook group. Give me a shout, but make sure you get on that list for the new podcast if you are interested in selling to corporations. Have an awesome one, and I'll see you soon.